out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Welcome to subsection module 1.05 of our 1979-80 teachings of revisited teachings here. We are moving on to I think it's early October that we've managed to reach now. ITV's cameras are still off air. The technicians' dispute rumbles on, not a pace, but a pace. It's snail pace. Match of the day cameras are heading to Selhurst Park. Top of the table, Crystal Palace are taking on Tottenham Hotspur, who are currently sat within the relegation zone. Still all very early days, but the table is kind of, it's very much kind of like turned upside down, Dave.
Well, the team of the 80s, of course, Crystal Palace are going to be. So we're reliably informed by everybody, particularly Terry Venables. But yes, very early days. It'd be interesting to see how this all pans out.
Yes, what could possibly go wrong? Crystal Palace in the epic white kit with the blue and green, the blue and red sash that goes across the trimmings. Obviously, this is this is High Admiral. Spurs in yellow with those kind of like lapel panels. I don't know what we call them on their kit. Sartorially elegant. There's something special about Selhurst Park even to this day. It's just one of the great grounds as well. As far as the lineup goes, the Crystal Palace side, there's 6 members. I mean, I'm told there's 6 members by I think is it Barry Davis in this one? Or is it John Motter? I can't quite remember now. Who's guiding us through this one? But whoever it is that's doing the preamble states that there are 6 players involved in this Palace lineup that have been part of the FA Youth Cup winning sides of the mid to late 70s to emboss just what Terry Venables is doing with this Crystal Palace side. I had a quick glance and I counted 5 myself, but I might be missing someone. There's a chance of missing someone. I'm not correcting Barry Davis. That's sacrilege. But the Palace lineup: Burridge, Hinchelwood, Gilbert, Cannon, Sanson, Francis, Jerry Francis, Peter Nicholas, Murphy, Vince Hilaire, Dave Swindlehurst, and Mike Flanagan with that incredible Vi-leader super mop of her. It's Walsh on the bench. Everyone seems to have a Walsh on the bench at this point in time. Tottenham are fielding Barry Daines in goal. There's Yorath, Chris Hughton, Steve Perryman. It's McAllister, Jones, Paul Miller, Ozzy Ardiles, Ricky Villa, Jerry Armstrong, Glenn Hoddle, and it's they've got a Pratt on the bench, Dave.
Yes, haven't we all at some point in or another?
Again, standout names there, aren't they, on both sides? That we can pick out with ease. That does not translate to contemporary football last weekend. Who was in the Crystal Palace and Tottenham sides of 2024-25?
It is just a glorious looking match. I mean, the sun's shining still at that stage, as you say. The kits are fantastic. That Tottenham one, with those things, it always reminds me of somebody who's stumbling out of the casino at Monte Carlo at 4 o'clock in the morning with his tie hanging around his neck.
Yeah.
He just lost all his money, going off to blow his brains out in the harbour. But you got Ardiles and Hoddle and Villa, and you got Vince Hilaire, Jerry Francis with the same haircut that he's had for 50 years.
Yes,
hasn't changed a bit. It's a glorious looking game, all set fair for some tremendous entertainment.
Absolutely, and the form bucket is out of the window within 3 minutes. Ricky Villa scores an absolute screamer to put Tottenham ahead.
He does, yeah. I mean, the ball, it's 20 yards out, just to the left of the D as he's looking at it, and it doesn't seem like anything's happening. And bang, it's in the top corner. John Burridge, looking like he's got no idea what's gone on there. He's just a bystander at a bus stop watching it flying into the top corner. I think Ricky Villa is as surprised as anybody else in the stadium, to be honest. But it's a smashing goal. That kind of sets the tone for the half. I mean, it is a Tottenham first half, isn't it? Glenn Hoddle's knocking the ball around all over the place as you'd expect. And Palace are, team of the 80s or whatever, but they're chasing shadows for a lot of that first half. And it's the classic. They only go in 1-0 up Tottenham when it should have been perhaps 2 or 3, and the game's still in the balance from there. But it's a really good Tottenham performance from a team that's, as you say, been struggling at the start of the season, stuck in the bottom 3. They look the business.
They do very much a point to prove, I think. Here, I mean, we were chatting the other day when we were putting the concept of this one together, and there's some great images of Terry Venables sat on the bench and Keith Birkinshaw sat there on his own. Venables is surrounded by acolytes. Birkinshaw just sat on his own. I think we drew correlation to Emmerdale Farm. He looks a bit like a travelling shoe salesman who's broken Dolly Sugden's heart. He's been run out of town by what was his name? What was the Matt Skillbeck? I think the name was is the forlorn Matt Skillbeck has paid him to leave town. This is the striking image of it, and this is played in all the more because kind of like Keith Birkinshaw has that unexpected Yorkshire accent that always takes us by surprise because we associate him so much with Tottenham. We just think, Cockney, but no, he's as Yorkshire as they come.
And it's a very odd dugout as well. It looks like they've just knocked it up about 20 minutes.
Been a plyboard at the back there,
yeah. Somebody's realised, Christ, we haven't got a dugout. Where's B&Q? Was there B&Q in 1979? I can't remember. Anyway, I'm assuming there was. So as you said,
it might have been down in Southampton, maybe the original shop. It's down the M3 to go and get some plyboard.
A bit of plyboard, knock something together. That'll have to do. It is a glorious reminder of the ramshackle nature of 1970s football, 1970s into the 80s football. It wouldn't pass muster today. There'd be somebody with a clipboard closing your ground down for having a dugout like that.
Absolutely, they would. The aesthetics of this are just wonderful. We've mentioned the kits. Some great players, some interesting hairstyles going on. It's got a bit of everything. It's got the man who broke Dolly Sugden's heart. It's this. As games go, this is an absolute peach. We spoke of that Forest Liverpool game and it being more intriguing in terms of it being a chess match than anything else. The kitchen sink drama and the needle between the two sides, and Forest being that thorn in Liverpool's side. This is a completely different kettle of fish. This game. This is entertainment pretty much from start to finish. Tottenham fans, having a bit of an esoteric kind of time of it with the songs that they're singing. They're on about going to Wembley. September is barely over. The singing about going to Wembley. The singing Jingle Bells, tunes to Jingle Bells, which the classic. About winning away that we've all done, but it tends to be sung around Christmas. This even by 1979 going into 1980 standards, they've started Christmas too early there, the Tottenham fans.
Much too early. You can't be doing that in September. I do remember actually going to Selhurst Park in early December one year, early 2000s. They'd got a corner of the ground was just left out. It was still terracing, I think, up the one corner. And there was this knackered old Christmas tree that they'd put up with half a dozen baubles on it to bring in the Christmas spirit. But no, Tottenham had some terrible songs. I remember one year they beat the Albion 1-0 and they'd scored after about 2 minutes. It was a terrible game after that. And there was this chorus of "We are Tottenham, Super Tottenham" for about 90 minutes non-stop. God, it was horrendous. But on the pitch, you can't fault them. I mean, there's 2 or 3 minutes of 2 or 3 moments rather of prime Glenn Hoddle just getting the ball and sweeping it 65 yards across the pitch right into the path of somebody without even looking. I mean, it's a joy to behold. And every time you see Glenn Hoddle from that kind of period, you think, well, why wasn't he the first pick for England? Why weren't we building the team around this fellow that could do all of this? It remains a mystery, really.
It does. It absolutely does. I mean, and Villa played, I think, one of his best games in the Tottenham shirt. He's all over the place in this as well, and it kind of puts Ardiles in the shade on this particular day. He plays the deeper lying role and does all the understated things very, very well. But yeah, this is very much Tottenham's first half. Apart from Peter Nicholas having a speculative effort that's easily enough saved by Barry Daines. Villa, there's one point where he puts in Armstrong, A lovely chipped effort that hits the Palace crossbar. Armstrong again forces Burridge into a decent save. And it's one of those kind of games where you've got kind of like one goal scored, here's a succession of other chances that aren't taken. Here comes the sense of foreboding for what is ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all suffered those, haven't we? I mean, the game should be absolutely out of sight by half time. Tottenham have been camped in the Palace half really for all the footage that we see, and there's been a couple of missed chances. Jerry Armstrong's come close with one, clipped the top of the crossbar, and I don't think Burridge has made any particular saves if I can remember back. But it's one-way traffic. I mean, the Palace team can't get anything going at all. Spurs are swamping them, but as you say, when they all troop off at half time at 1-0, if you're in the Tottenham end, you're thinking, oh dear, we know how this one's going to finish.
We know what's happening.
We know what's coming.
Yeah, there's only really, I mean, I think Burridge makes a save or two, but none of them are saves that he shouldn't. When you say that there's a keeper who's made a save he has no right to make, there's not a moment like that. But there are, like say, Armstrong clips the crossbar. There's a couple of headers in good positions where Jones should do better. With Chris Jones should do better with a decent headed chance, but he's off target with it. So there's those kind of opportunities where get a header on target there. That's going to be hard to stop. It's the hypothetical. It's the sliding door there. But within that, a header on target, an Armstrong chipped effort that's an inch lower. That is kind of like 2-3-0. That first half. The only one effort that I saw from Crystal Palace, or the one moment of peril for Barry Daines, he comes for a ball. He's committed for a long ball coming forward, but decides against it partway. One of those where he decides against it, and then you've got I think it's Perryman who's the backtrack. He's seen the keeper come. He's thought, oh, you're coming for it. I'll stop. You before me, and then it's allowed Flanagan in, but he's not been able to loft his effort over. Again, Flanagan should do better. This is maybe a scoreline that should be 3-1 to Tottenham at half time in another game. But yeah, that is very much Tottenham in the ascendancy. Crystal Palace top of the table. The cameras are on them. They've gone a bit rabbit in the headlights.
I think it is one of those where when you're unexpectedly at the top, all of a sudden there's pressure that you've never played with before. I mean, I know we're only half a dozen games into the season, but suddenly when everybody's looking at you and expecting things from you, and then you're on television as well, which was it was a big deal in those days, being on television.
Huge thing. That spotlight is massive.
Yeah, how often were you on matches?
Because there's only a very small. You've got what are we talking? Kind of like, was it 46 games across the Football League? Yeah, only 2 of them have got cameras at them. You are the focus of that weekend's football.
Absolutely, it was a huge thing to actually be on television, and it is a young side, obviously. That's the whole point of Crystal Palace. So I think they do fall foul of. Well, we've got to put a performance on this afternoon. We got to show people why we're at the top, and of course Tottenham struggling at the bottom. They want to make a point. They want to duff Crystal Palace up and say we're the best team around here in London. You can forget being at the top, we're going to come and overtake you. So I think there's a lot of that plays into it. The other thing, which is really peculiar, I mean, we've talked about the kids and how, what great kids they are. And it's a fairly packed crowd, and there's no replica shirts anyway. People are not wearing replica shirts at this point in football grounds, which is it's almost as jarring as not seeing Pat Jennings in the Tottenham goal still, even 3 years after he's left. It's, you look into that crowd and, people are in T-shirts or coats or whatever, but nobody's wearing, the top. And now if you looked into the Tottenham end or the Palace end, it'd be full of shirts from various seasons. Although Admiral are producing all these amazing kits, which we spoke about in a different podcast on a different channel once upon a time.
Absolutely.
It still isn't sort of filtering down into people buying them. I suppose kids are doing it, perhaps, but certainly there's no kind of adult market, is there, at that point?
No, not at all. Not at all. One highly unsettling, part amid all this joy and revelry about this game and the landscape and the kits and all that. There is one highly audible moment of racism in this. Chris Hughton on the ball. This is, I don't know, a reminder of what it was like, Dave.
Absolutely. A lot of places it was a lot worse than this as well. But the thing, that always, many things about it are wrong, but the thing that always seemed particularly peculiar was that you could do that to Chris Hughton while you got Vince Hilaire playing for your team.
That was going to be the very next point. It's there's Vince Hilaire and such great things in a Crystal Palace shirt, and for you to be able to to direct that at Chris Hughton.
It makes well, I suppose if anybody's going to do that, a lot of what they do doesn't make any sense. So, appealing to their intelligence is perhaps a bit of a waste of time. But it was just such a stain on football, on society, obviously. At the time, there was all the National Front, and we had to have the Anti-Nazi League and all that kind of stuff was going on at the time. But football, just the authorities just said, well, okay, well, there's nothing much we can do about it, and then, perhaps over the years it'll get a bit better. There was no real. We've got to do something about this. We got to stamp this out. We got to, I don't know. We'll close the ground down for that play behind closed doors. Or there was no real focus. I mean, I suppose when we came to kick it out, and when was that? That was in the 90s, wasn't it? I think they just had the 30th anniversary. So 93, 94, something like that. There were lots of hand wringing and tut. This is terrible, and nobody did anything. When you look back on it, it's startling, isn't it?
It is. On the plus side, there it's a very. I mean, obviously we get about 25 to 30 minutes of coverage of this. We don't know what goes on throughout the entirety of it, but it's heard once on the coverage that we see, and that's it. And it's not a mass. It's not around the entirety of the ground. This, you'd like to think that maybe leads into whoever was doing that on that particular day was actually told to shut up. Feasibly.
You would hope so. I mean, certainly I'm not, putting a slur on Crystal Palace as a...
No, because they're not a club you naturally associate to that type of thing.
It was prevalent, wasn't it? That was,
which I think is why it stands out in that footage as well. Because I had to go back and listen to it again. I had to backtrack like a minute and thought, did I hear what I thought I heard? And then I thought, yeah, no, I did actually hear that. But because it was such a surprise, not surprising because of the era that it was, but but certainly surprising that it's not a club I ever associated. That type of character. To,
yeah. I mean, I wonder as well, thinking back, whether the TV companies, BBC and ITV, sort of mixed that sound down a lot as well. Because I mean, obviously, there's the famous Gerald Sinstadt with the Albion 5-3 at Manchester United, where he talks about the racism, and then I wondered if it was sort of mixed down in the sound at lots of other grounds.
Yeah, possible.
I'm not sure. I don't know, but in the same way that Elon Musk mixes out his spaceships exploding and he's taking out commercial jets. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. Back on the pitch in the second half, we've got. There's an early goal line clearance. Tottenham kind of begin the second half as they've left off of the first half. There's a goal line clearance there, but that seems to be the fork in the road for Crystal Palace to say, hang on, we've got to get our heads together here and start doing something. Otherwise, this is adding to a defeat. And before long, Flanagan's struck the post, and that's the kind of like the broadside across the Tottenham defence to say we're not out of this yet.
Yeah, but I mean, Palace really do sort of come on strong in the second half, and I mean, I'm sure Terry Venables supporters will say they pulled some tactical masterstroke. There doesn't appear to be any great tactical masterstroke. It's just the way the game swings. It becomes. It is fairly end to end. I mean, it's not all Palace in the same way that the first half was all Spurs, but I mean, Palace do become dominant.
It's a much more even game, that second half, isn't it? It's much more even.
And Flanagan causes all kinds of problems really up front. It looks like he should be playing Jeff Lynne in an ELO tribute band or something. But there's one where he's stretching and he's stretching to get hold of it, and he just turns his volley over the bar. And that, again, as you said, that really is the catalyst, because I don't think Tottenham have anything of substance after that in terms of chances. Really, it is only Palace who are gonna score, and then ultimately the equaliser comes.
It does indeed. It does indeed. There are, Kenny Sanson starting to get down the left-hand side made a big difference to Crystal Palace's second half here. I always felt the Kenny Sanson Crystal Palace version of Kenny Sanson. He seemed to, I don't know, the Arsenal version of him obviously had certain terms and conditions with Don Howe's influence in there. But the Crystal Palace version of Kenny Sanson was a really progressive, kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a player that you'd look at and think you wouldn't look out of place playing, in kind of like Spain or something, maybe not necessarily Italy, but, you could see him playing for a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a Valencia or something like that with the style of player that he was in a Crystal Palace shirt.
Any comment to make about Kenny Sanson always come with the caveat that he wasn't as good as Derek Statham, but no, he was a terrific player for Crystal Palace. Terry Venables in that side. I mean, he gave him his head, didn't he? He let him go. He let him be an auxiliary winger, really. In that sense, he was a much more exciting, attractive player to watch than, as you say. I mean, when you get to Arsenal, there's a certain thing. I mean, Donna, well, there's 4 of you that are never going to go over the halfway line. Thanks very much. So you stay there. That's what you're going to do. And he did curb all his natural instincts to a degree. I mean, he's still a great player, and he's still got forward and made a mark, but never in quite the same joyous way, I suppose. I mean,
never translated that freedom to Arsenal that he had at Crystal Palace.
Yeah, and I suppose that's why Arsenal won trophies and Crystal Palace ended up going back into the second division. But
yeah, absolutely,
it's not so much fun to watch.
No, this Palace was a lot of fun to watch. Even when they come to unravel. Ardiles, having been muted, he does take a pot from distance tipped over by Burridge. This is the point in time where you're looking at Tottenham thinking you really should be home and dry here, but you're not. And sure enough, there's Flanagan with a volley at the back post. Fine work from Hilaire. It's over the crossbar, but it's a warning. Ardiles test Burridge again. It does have an end-to-end element. In up to, I don't know, that kind of half time up to kind of the last 20 minutes or so. Tottenham fans are getting a bit kind of like braver. They're about 20 odd minutes away from victory. They feel like they've got all this wrapped up. It'll be uncomfortable audio for them now, but there they are singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," just as a lot of clubs were doing at that point in time. I will repeatedly point out across the span of these modules, those who were singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," by the way. This will be a regular feature. But then on comes Walsh. There's always a Walsh on the bench. But I mean, never seemed to be too far away from a Walsh being on the bench in late 1970s, early 1980s. And sure enough, there's one climbing off the bench for Dave Swindlehurst. And within 2 minutes, he's linked up with Murphy and Flanagan. And it's the ball's up and over Barry Daines, and we have our equaliser, Dave.
I suppose we must call it the Terry Venables masterstroke of the substitution. I mean, it's within a couple of minutes of him coming on, isn't it? So, yeah.
It's a quick.
It's a nicely worked goal as well, Flanagan.
It is really, really good link down the right-hand side.
Yeah, and Barry Daines comes chasing off his line to try and stop it. Doesn't get there quickly enough, and Walsh sort of hits it into him, and it loops up off Daines and into the net. And I think Barry Davis says, and Barry Daines is devastated. I think what actually it is, Barry Daines just took a kick in the head from Walsh, just followed through to score the goal. But that's then his, and particularly I think from Tottenham's point of view, with 20 minutes to go, you haven't had the best start to the season. Then you get that sinking feeling of oh no, this could get a lot worse yet. And then Keith Birkinshaw brings John Pratt into the action in place of Ardiles, of all people. You wouldn't have thought Ozzy Ardiles got substituted all that often, but John Pratt's there to shore things up.
There it was, yeah. We've mentioned it in a previous module. The 2 points for an era. Let's protect the point that we've been downgraded to. There are chances for a winner. There's a magnificent curler from Hoddle that as Burridge beat all ends up, but just goes wide. At the opposite end, McAllister almost puts the ball in his own net after a panicked attempted clearance by Perriman. That would have been one hell of a goal had that sneaked the opposite side of the post than it did.
Yes, it would have been. I suppose from Tottenham's point of view, given where they were in the league at the time, I suppose it would have summed everything up, wouldn't it? A game that they should have won, and they somehow managed to find an own goal to lose it. But we must also mention John Burridge and his croupier shade that he dons for about 2 seconds as there's a corner about to come in, puts it over his eyes, then hurls it back into the net with absolute disdain. So I don't know where he got it from, quite what he thought it was going to do, but not fit for purpose.
Yeah, you've got to wonder if his kids have given him that as he set off on the morning of the game. And yeah, Dad, he's got kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a maroon tinted, burgundy tinted Selhurst Park all of a sudden, or something like that. All in all, a magnificent game of football, Dave.
There's all kinds of things going on there. It's all human life is at Selhurst Park that afternoon, for good and for bad. But it's a really entertaining game. Like I said in the previous one, it's nice that you get 25 minutes of it, because you do get that feel for the ebb and flow of the game, don't you? Much more than you do when you get sort of 6-7 minutes and it's basically around the goals and 12 action replays. I think it's a much nicer way to watch the highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. Tottenham clearly much better than their league position suggests. Very fluid in midfield. I love the interchanging of directions and stuff like that. We spoke about in the Charity Shield subsection module that kicked us off about how Arsenal were very kind of like expansive but rigid. In the framework. This is Tottenham, the opposite side of North London. They're trying to do a bit of Liverpool, and certainly in the midfield, there's a lot of kind of like swapping and changing of positions, and Hoddle would drift one way via the other. Ardiles coming from deep and all of that. It's some magnificent football, if anything. And you're looking at the Palace side of things is a bit more Arsenal-like in a way, because there is a rigidity. There's Vince Hilaire. Yes, you will stay on that wing. There isn't that cutting in from wide. It's very much kind of Graham Taylor-esque in some ways for the want of mentioning another future England manager that we'll come to at some point, I'm sure, before too long.
I suppose at this stage, it's still very much Tottenham are required to play attractive football. I mean, it's amazing to think now that this is 17, 18 years on from the double. The glory Tottenham Hotspur, Danny Blanchflower, and then going on through the 60s, Jimmy Greaves and all of that sort of stuff. And it is a requirement of Tottenham to play attractive football and to have that fluidity and intelligence about the way they play. Going back again, the push and run team, which again is still only sort of 27, 28 years prior to this. And that, I wonder about this a lot. Obviously, a lot of those Spurs supporters would still remember those days in the same way that, we remember the 70s and the 80s of our teams, and that's kind of what you expect your team to be. And that puts a pressure on the club, doesn't it, I think? People going to watch Tottenham would have had an expectation that this is what Tottenham have got to be. They've got to be like the push and run team. They've got to be like Bill Nicholson's team. This is what we expect. We're not having any other kind of football. And broadly speaking, Keith Birkinshaw's team here, they're living up, not necessarily to the quality of it, but they're certainly living up to the ideals of it. They're trying to do that kind of thing. Whereas I suppose with Palace, it's a little bit more of a blank sheet of paper, because Palace have come really from nowhere, haven't they, at that point? I mean, their first season in the top division was, 69? So they haven't got that weight of history around them. So, I think Terry Venables has got a bit more freedom to do whatever he wants. I mean, at West Brom, for instance, we always hark back to the Cyril Regis team of the 70s. And then, of course, we were crap for about 20 years from the mid-80s onwards. So Gary Megson was then allowed to come in and be a boring, horrendously dull football. But we didn't care, because all of a sudden we were winning. We hadn't won for 20 years. So that was okay then. And then after a couple of years of that, no, what we really want now is the Cyril Regis team again. And I think that weight of the crowd can have a big impact on it.
It can. And this is a Tottenham team, under construction. There's a lot of familiarity to kind of like what are we now? We're 18 months or so, 19, 20 months away from them winning the FA Cup. And there's components there that'll be part of those early 1980s successes that Tottenham have, but there's parts some parts that will still fall away to be replaced. This is kind of like an interesting half and half mix in that respect. Crystal Palace, their side of it, a lot of characters come back into the game after being largely outclassed for the first hour. I'd say hype warranted at this stage.
It seemed like it, didn't it? They played really well coming through the leagues to get up into the first division. It was just they had exciting players. I think it wasn't just the results. It was great to watch Vince Hilaire play. If you went to see a Palace game, watching him was exciting. You mentioned Kenny Sansom as well. Same kind of thing. There was something fresh about the way that they played. There was an exuberance, as I said about Kenny Sansom generally, but about Palace generally, there was that feel to him. And I feel you haven't had your opportunity to talk about the sash either sufficiently. So you've got to throw that into the equation as well. I think
you do have to throw that into the equation. It looks good. It's always right when Palace bring that kit back in one way or another. Other first division results of the day. Arsenal, Manchester City shared a goalless draw at Highbury. Aston Villa 3-0 winners at home to Southampton. Coventry City defeat Everton 2-1. Derby County, after a difficult start to the season, they turned Bolton Wanderers over 4-0. Leeds United 2-1 winners against Ipswich Town. Liverpool put 4 without reply past Bristol City at Anfield. Manchester United plod on or roll on relentlessly at this point in time. 2-0 winners at home to Brighton. Middlesbrough, sorry Dave, they've turned West Brom over 2-1. Or edged, I think we'll reclassify that. Middlesbrough have edged West Brom there.
It was at Selhurst Park. Albion never won at Selhurst Park ever.
I'm sure it will come. I'm sure. I think you're going to prosper more than they're going to do over the rest of this season. I'm sure. Norwich City, Stoke City 2-2 at Carrow Road. Nottingham Forest get a 3-2 win against Wolves. At the top of the table, Manchester United, Nottingham Forest level on points. Dave Sexton's side ahead on goal average. Back page headlines, Dave. Liverpool, Everton, West Brom, Aberdeen. We're all shamefaced. We've been knocked out of European club competition in the midweek before. Brian Clough, wants more headlines. He's threatening to leave Nottingham Forest over what he and Peter Taylor view to be board interference of their duties. Manchester United attempt the late hijack of Wolves' move for Everton's Dave Thomas. Wolves eventually prevail in that transfer tussle. Tommy Docherty, interestingly, is questioned by police in Derby over reputed transfer irregularities from his time at the baseball ground. FA Cup final tickets are set for a price hike. Terrace tickets are going to be rising by £1 to £3.50. Stand tickets leaping an extortionate £4 from 12 to 16. Ted Croker states that the FA would be more than happy to host the 1982 World Cup should Spain not be able to overcome their power struggle at the organising committee levels. While Des Lynam is all set to front grandstand for the first time, David Coleman is out with flu. Dave, take your pick from the headlines.
Brian Clough yet again, isn't it?
Clough, he's never far away from coming up with some mad headline, is he?
Board interference, yes.
Board interference not long after being a target of a kidnapped target for Bass separatists.
Those FA Cup prices are that's a hell of a jump, isn't it? From £12 to 16 or £2.50 to £3.50. That's a See, Thatcherism, inflation.
Exactly. She's got a feet under the desk, and look what's happening here. God, the 80s are going to be a bit of a rough ride for some of us, Dave.
Absolutely, they are.
A wonderful... we'll try not to think about all that. The milk's already gone, Dave. She's already snatched the milk.
I remember.
The old witch. I'll leave on that point. I would say thank you for tuning in to 1979-80 Revisited, subsection 1.06. Or 1.05, I think we all know, Dave. 1.06 is coming up soon, which will have multiple paragraphs as well. Stand by for a bumper edition of of 1.06. Dave, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
I look forward to the next module. Thank you and goodbye.